Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Romancing the Bard with the Bard with just a hint of tragicomedy. I'm so excited to talk through this with you, and let's get going. So what's playing? There were different flag styles that would advertise what types of plays would be playing, and so each theater would hoist a flag at the top so that people even across the Thames would be able to see what kind of play would be playing at the different theaters. So a white flag, so this was how a playhouse advertised or marketed the type of play being performed, and so the promoters flew a specific flag. So a white flag signified that a comedy would be performed, with the white symbolizing light subject matter. A black flag signified that a tragedy would be performed, with black symbolizing darker subject matter associated with death. And a red flag signified that a history play would be performed, with the red symbolizing subject matter associated with blood, bloodlines, or bloody wars. So that's how the public knew what to expect. When we're thinking about, we're going to talk about Northrop Frye and his mythos grid, and this comes from Anatomy of Criticism, published in 1957, and in it, Northrop Frye asserts that all narratives fall into one or of four mythos, and the four mythos that we're talking about is romance, tragedy, irony and satire, comedy. And then you can see that we have it associated with the four different seasons, with spring, summer, autumn, and winter. And within this characterization, Northrop Frye also has 6 phases, and each mythos has 6 phases. When I write sharing is caring here, that means that each mythos shares 3 phases with the preceding mythos, and 3 phases with the succeeding mythos. So let's take summer romance, since we're talking about romances right now. Let's take romance as our example. So you can see that we have 3 different phases to romance. The first, or 6 phases, but the first 3 are complete innocence, youthful innocence of inexperience, and then completion of an ideal. And so if those 3 mythos, these 3 stages of the mythos or phases, it is overlapping with tragedy. You can see summer romance here overlaps here with tragedy, and then we can also see that it overlaps here with comedy. So romance in and of itself has elements of comedy within it, but it also has elements of tragedy in it, which is why the title of this is Romance with Hints of Tragicomedy, right? Because there are elements of romance that comprise a romance, but then there's elements of comedy and tragedy in it. So we've got the complete innocence, youthful innocence, completion of the ideal. Those are first 3 phases overlap with tragedy, and then the latter 3 stages of happy society that resists change, reflective and idyllic view, and society ceases to exist beyond contemplation. Those are the 3 latter phases that romance shares with comedy. What is romance? Well, it's a hybrid. Romance contains elements of comedy and tragedy. We just saw that visually in the Mythos grid from Northrop Frye. And so you're going to have elements of nostalgic elements marked by extraordinarily persistent nostalgia for something that's past. We've got a search of some kind of imaginative old golden age in time and space, searching for those glory days. We've got a play containing virtuous heroes and beautiful heroines, and a representation of high-minded ideals and ideologies. We've also got plays containing villains who threaten the heroes and the heroines' ascendancy. And so these are some of the things we can look forward to. Northrop Frye also provides us some characteristics of romance. We have presentation of an idealized world, the black and white world of our desires, this dichotomous world where good things are really good and bad things are really bad. It involves the journey, which involves the hero's journey. It unequivocally represents what is thought to be right and virtuous, can show signs of divinity. The villain unequivocally represents what is wrong or immoral and can show signs of demonic qualities. You've got the quest, you've got some of these tropes with the quest, the sage, the prohibition, the sacrifice, the magical or mystical elements with the dragon, which begins with medieval literature, the treasure, something that's being sought after, and sometimes the rescue. Often, especially with medieval literature, the damsel in distress sort of idea. That's all the journey of the players. And then you've got the epiphany. It's typically somewhere high, mountaintop, tower, or isolated like an island. You've got a lighthouse, a ladder, a staircase. In some way, it's trying to connect heaven and earth to show this elevated mindset, this high-minded epiphany that's transpiring. There are also some abbreviated characteristics of romance. The common plot is a basic quest sequence. You've got this struggle, this perilous journey and minor adventures. You've got a ritual or figurative and sometimes even literal death. There's a crucial struggle, usually a battle in which either the hero or heroine or her or his foe or both must die. And then you've got this recognition, the exaltation of the hero. Often the hero will disappear after the ritual death and reappear for the final stage. And you want to really think about that for some of the plays that we'll be discussing. In the phases of romance, we have the birth of a hero, and the birth of the hero comes out of complete innocence. This is going back to that mythos grid of Northrop Frye. You've got this youthful innocence of inexperience, the pastoral world, where we have nature, literal nature, in addition to how the innocence of human nature, and you've got parental guidance. You've got the completion of an ideal, the quest to destroy evil and return goodness and fertility to the land. You've got a happy society that resists change. The innocence is assaulted by experience. Think Coleridge and his Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience, and how innocence is sort of assaulted by experience because naivete is diffused by experience, right? And innocence survives the assault of experience. Sometimes we can see this as being moral allegory or a morality play. Shakespeare doesn't really go, he's not super didactic or pedantic, and he doesn't hit us over the head with moralizing, but we might still see hints of that. There's a reflective or idyllic view, knowledgeable contemplation of experience and adventure. And then society ceases to exist beyond contemplation, refers to the tale being told to a small group with an entertaining tone and purpose. That's the play, right? And then we've got some elements that are unique and really prevalent in Shakespearean romance. We've got this enveloping conflict of war, rebellion, jealousy, treachery, intrigue that may cover a large time span. The conflict may have even begun a generation or more before the events of the play. And there's a resolution to this. The conflict is resolved at the end of the play. And that should be reminding you of Shakespeare's comedy elements, right? And then we've got, there may be an apparent resurrection, a sudden conversion, but despite the tragical situations, ultimately the endings provide a positive and happy resolution. We have a happy ending to the potentially tragic situation within the play. And it gets a little fairy tale-like sometimes with the happily ever after idea. But because of some of the tragic elements, is it as clean and happily ever after as a comedy, or are there some problematic elements to this happy ending? Then you've got an almost exaggerated characters that can translate the story to almost mythic levels, with the depth of their virtue being sort of divine-like, or villain, demon or devil-like with their villainy, right? And so we have this exalted virtue and deep villainy happening. We have characters who are usually of high class, social class standing, links us more to the tragedy. If the mighty can fall, how much more do the lowly need to be mindful? Is there also an element of trying to keep social order in place? We've got similar to most Shakespeare's plays, or most of Shakespeare's plays, we have both the rural setting and the court setting. But in the romance plays, and even in some comedies, we have more pastoral, even more nature in some elements. Typically, we have the love of a virtuous and idealized hero or heroine, and we have the purity of love is often contrasted to the grosser or lesser aspects of love. You might particularly look for the above in The Tempest. When we come to tragicomedy, the term was employed to designate the particular kind of play developed by Beaumont and Fletcher around 1610. And Fletcher defines his tragicomedy for his audience by saying, quote, "A tragicomedy is not so called in respect of mirth and killing, but in respect it wants or lacks deaths, which is enough to make it no tragedy, yet brings some near it, which is enough to make it no comedy, which must be a representation of familiar people, with such kind of trouble as no life be questioned, so that a God is as lawful in this tragicomedy as in the tragedy, and mean or lower class people as in a comedy," end quote. So here are some characteristics of tragicomedy. And I'm not going to read them all to you. You can sort of read them on the screen here, but you can sort of see we've touched on some of these ideas in previous slides, but you can sort of see the overlap of this sort of dichotomous tragic with the comedy and the overlap in between them. When we are thinking about Shakespeare and the romantic tragicomedy, even though at the time of the first folio there was no tragicomedy delineation, many critics consider Shakespeare's final plays to be romantic tragicomedies. In times past, some critics have considered the romances to be more experimental, experiment plays, but more scholars see them as something more than just experiments. G. Wilson Knight, who lived from 1897 to 1985, and who was an English literary critic and academic known for interpretations of mythic content literature. In his essay, The Wheel of Fire of Shakespeare's Drama, he views Shakespeare's last plays, the romance plays, as allegories of, quote, great creating nature, end quote, and, quote, myths of immortality, end quote. And most recent criticism centers on the themes of time, growth, decay, and regeneration in Shakespeare's romance plays. So which is which? Most classify the following Shakespearean plays as romances, and you can see that list. You can see when they are thought to have been first written or performed, and The Two Noble Kinsmen is thought to be co-written. We'll talk about that in class at another time. And then we have some expand upon the romance derivative by adding the romantic tragicomedy title to the mix for the following plays, Cymbeline and The Winter's Tale. And if you can believe it, I did it close to 15 minutes. We got a presentation done very close to 15 minutes. So enjoy the Bard Mansidy Sons, the Tragedy in our romance plays that we will be discussing for the latter part of this semester. Looking forward to chatting more about these plays with you, and see you soon.